John, Anik, and Kenny Florian podcast. John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
Well, arguably the only thing better than calling UFC fights for a living is getting to chop it up with Kenny Florian on the back end. Great to have you with us. It is the 471st episode of the Anik and Florian podcast presented by DraftKings. It is Monday, March 4th. The year is 2024. Full-length episodes of the show can always be accessed on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel as well. A lot of clips going on over there. You can follow the show at AnikFlorianPod and support our merchandise endeavors on johnanik.com, where you can get 20% off with promo code OneMoreSleep. Kenflo, you look pretty well slept. How we doing?
I am pretty well slept for once. I'm doing good, brother.
Doing a lot of pistol shooting over the weekend or what?
I did a lot of pistol shooting this week. Yeah, putting a lot of rounds down range and trying to get better at this, man. I've become a little obsessed with shooting, so it's been a lot of fun.
Well, if you are looking to rob a house in a gated community in North Carolina, I would just go to Kenflo's neighbor's house. You know, he's got better odds at the neighbor's house. All right, Headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. We will begin our show today with our UFC Fight Night Rosenstrike versus Gaziev recap and a lot of UFC 299 stuff coming up with Ray Longo. We will also have a full UFC 299 preview with predictions and wagers coming up this Wednesday on the DraftKings YouTube channel. And we're also scheduled today to be joined by the UFC's #1 flyweight contender, Brandon Royval, and MMA world champion, the undefeated, the great Johnny Eblen as well, scheduled to join us on the back half of the program. But Headlines today brought to you by Cuervo begins with Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Bigi Boy's a good egg. He had a lot of support from the Suriname faithful in the building there at the UFC Apex. I mean, how did the Suriname folks get corner the market on tickets at the UFC Apex? I mean, I felt like I was in fucking Suriname. But it is a TKO for Rosenstrike, and it comes at the end of, you could argue, 20 merciful minutes. But he gets past Shamil Gaziev by TKO there. Rosenstrike was the underdog. His jab led the dance and told the whole story, and gets a big win when he needed it. His 8th UFC win for Bigi Boy.
Yes, listen, this was not the pinnacle of mixed martial arts in the UFC, but it was still Rosenstrike getting it done. And sometimes it doesn't have to be pretty. You just have to get it done, get the win by any means necessary. And I think Rosenstrike's patience, was the difference here. I think he did a good job of staying in the fight in round 1. He didn't make any major mistakes, giving up a submission there. Wasn't a great round 1 for him. It was a very good round for Gaziev. And then from there, it was like a completely different fight. Rosenstrike was able to keep the proper distance, keep Gaziev on the outside. We saw Gaziev get very tired and very frustrated. I think the efficiency or lack thereof in his takedown technique really started to be exposed in that one. And Rosenstrike clearly has been working on his takedown defense, especially up against the cage. I think the athleticism difference was pretty apparent in that fight as well. Which means Gaziev really needs to improve his technique, not only with his striking, but I think with his takedown game in general. So I think a setback for him. He was undefeated heading into this one, learned a lesson here against Rosenstrike, who I think continues to show improvement and show that he is a very dangerous guy. Landed some big strikes and then really turned it on at the right time. And ultimately, it was Mark Goddard who noticed that Gaziev was having an issue with his eyesight or with something, asked for a translation, wanted to know what was going on, followed his intuition as a referee, followed his experience as a referee, and saved Gaziev from really taking more of a beating there. So excellent job there from Goddard. A lot of times we're always criticizing referees. I think it's important to credit them when they're doing a great job, and this was an example of that.
Yeah, the no-nonsense Mark Goddard over the weekend. I think he had seen enough, maybe like the rest of us at that point in time. No, I do think that Jairzinho Rozenstruik deserves credit, and so does King Mo Lawal and the rest of his coaches, right? Steve Bruno. I mean, this is certainly a fighter who has an appetite for MMA improvement, and he got off of his breakneck schedule for developmental time. And so I do think you have to credit Bigi Boy, but perhaps the bigger story here is not on the heavyweight gatekeeper, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but on Shamil Gaziev, who came in here with a pretty good amateur career, then 12-0 as a professional MMA heavyweight. And I think the question going into the fight was, what exactly does the UFC have in a division that could use some young blood, even though this guy's in his mid-30s, undefeated guy without the proverbial miles on his tank? And I think the answer is maybe not a great one, that Shamil Gaziev at this stage of his career is not a bona fide UFC heavyweight title contender. And I know you sort of illustrated some of the things he needs to improve upon, but with total respect, some really bad visuals on the side of the guy who was favored to beat a guy in Jairzinho Rozenstruik who's fought them all.
No, absolutely. Listen, you can't peek your face out there with your hands down and expect to have a whole lot of success at the highest levels of mixed martial arts. He was eating a lot of shots, John. Just seemed like he didn't really know how to enter properly or how to defensively deal with the strikes of Rozenstruik. You know, it just seemed like he was confused out there. Didn't really know how to approach it. Seemed to get very frustrated when he wasn't hitting those takedowns after round 2. And not a great look. Not the most technical fight because of that. But once Rozenstruik realized that Gaziev was essentially dead in the water and just dead tired, that's where he turned it up. And that's what you got to do as a fighter. You have to be patient, but at the same time, you need that killer instinct and let your strikes flow at the right time. And that's what he did in round 4. And that's where he really took over. But for Gaziev, yeah, he's got a lot of work to do, man. There's a lot of tough heavyweights out there. Everyone's getting better all the time. He's going to have to catch up.
And Jairzinho Rozenstruik is getting better, and he deserves credit as such. We congratulate Bigi Boy on moving his UFC record to 8-5. All right, so when the light heavyweight co-main event began, Ken Flo, I'm not sure if you were watching on mute or if you were watching live, but when Vitor Petrino and Tyson Pedro were in that small, tiny 25-foot octagon at the Apex, I said on the broadcast, like, I don't know if it's because little guys have been fighting all night, but these guys look huge. And I think maybe part of the reason why a lot of the fight was contested at a pedestrian, methodical, conservative pace was because of the respect that each man had for the potentially concussive blows coming back their way. So it is Vitor Petrino, the Brazilian, over Tyson Pedro by unanimous decision, 30-27 times 2, 29-28 from the dissenting judge. Tyson Pedro, classy as ever, retires after the fact. But Vitor Petrino did what he needed to do. Winning has to be priority number one. And even though maybe it wasn't the fight I billed as premium on Let It Only, still a nice win for Vitor Petrino over the credentialed Tyson Pedro.
I agree. Listen, I think Petrino fought smart and had to fight smart. I think he showed a healthy respect to Tyson Pedro for a reason. I think that Tyson wasn't able to counter like I thought he would have been able to. Petrino didn't throw himself out of position like I've seen him do in the past. And I think he realized that challenge that was in front of him. And I think that if this Petrino fights like that, or at least maybe he could be a little bit more aggressive, but fights with that same positioning and with those same fundamentals, I really think he can mess up a lot of guys in that division. Listen, Tyson Pedro's big. Petrino is massive. Like this dude, it looks like he can go and do a bodybuilding contest tomorrow. You know, he just has those genetics and that size, which is just a head scratcher. Like, how does this guy make that weight? How did he fit into those shorts and that shirt? Like, he's a big dude, and boy, he's got power as well. Sometimes you see these guys that are built up like that, and you go, well, that's cool. He looks big, but he's slow. He looks lethargic out there. Not the case for Petrino. He also carries that explosiveness as well, and conditioning as well, right? It's like there's that other thing called conditioning. He has that as well. So I think he really is an interesting guy to watch in that division. So I saw some improvements in his game, and Tyson Pedro just really wasn't able to get things going enough. It was just the power, the volume really was what got it done for Petrino.
Tyson Pedro's a real gentleman. He sent me a message after the fight, and just really heartwarming to get that from a retiring Tyson Pedro. You do feel bad for a guy, at least in terms of the injuries, taking away a decent chunk of his fighting prime. But when he came back, he realized success. I think won 3 of 5 fights since he came back from what was a 3+ year layoff. But I think the big issue for him, obviously, is parenthood, right? And wanting to spend as much time with his daughter as humanly possible. And also the fact that he lives in Australia, but City Kickboxing is now his home gym. And just when the City Kickboxing striking system is starting to seep into his subconscious, he's at a point in his life where, for financial and other reasons, he isn't able to spend that much time away. But we congratulate Tyson Pedro on the way out. And we look forward to Vitor Petrino's next fight, presumably against somebody in the light heavyweight top 15. Kenny, Brandon Royval scheduled to join us here in about 5 to 10 minutes. I want to get to the flyweights. This night was billed as moving night for the flyweight division, and moving on up to number 7 in the world at the very least will be Muhammad Mokaev. He stays undefeated with a unanimous decision win over Alex Perez. 29-28 times 3. Your thoughts on Mokaev staying perfect here in the UFC?
You know, it's the guys who find a way to win that are going to be a problem, either as champions in the future or as guys that are going to give those champions a really tough fight. And, you know, Mokaev, as my understanding, was sick heading into that fight, or was sick during that fight. And the fact that he was still able to get it done, even if it wasn't so pretty, still makes it impressive, especially given the challenge that he had in front of him. Very experienced guy, comes from that wrestling background, is good everywhere, yet he was still able to get it done. Now, let's talk about the lack of beauty in some of the technique or execution. I think that he needs to be able to integrate that striking into his entries a little bit better. I think because he realizes he's such a good wrestler, and because he's able to get in on that leg, that sometimes he was kind of just dropping down and looking for that leg a little bit. And he was able to do that against Perez. But can he do that against other guys, namely someone like Pantoja, without paying for it? I don't think so at this stage of the game. And from a striking perspective, I saw a lot of arm punches. He really wasn't generating power off the floor. Now, I think some of that could definitely be chalked up to him not feeling well, right? I mean, we've all been there. We don't feel terrible. I have trouble walking sometimes, right? So I think that's a part of it. However, I think there was a lack of technique or a lack of understanding there. And Mokaev, being the student and martial artist that he is, I think we will see those improvements. But we do need to see those improvements if he does want to be a champion in that division. Because right now, Pantoja is sitting pretty. He is dangerous everywhere. He's a guy that continues to improve. Mokaev's wrestling is tremendous. It is very good. It might be good enough to maybe still get it done, but good enough is not good enough in the UFC. You have to be dangerous everywhere. There's just too many killers out there. So I hope to see him improvements on Mokaev's part. Yeah, there were certain instances where you're like, I kind of felt like Perez could have stepped his foot on the gas a little bit more and taken advantage of some of those positions, but Mokaev found a way to get it done.
I think if you ask Muhammad Mokaev, he wouldn't mind having another fight or two before he fights for the title, but there are no guarantees in MMA. And when you think about him maybe fighting Steve Erceg in a 5-round UFC Fight Night main event, or fighting one of these guys in the top 10 like a Manel Kopp, you just don't know what could happen. So when the champion, Alexandre Pantoja, injects your name into the conversation and says, before you fight Alex Perez, that I think Muhammad Mokaev is going to be next, and you know he wants to defend in Rio de Janeiro May 4th at UFC 301, you get on a microphone and you call for the title fight. Because even if you lose that title fight at 23 years of age and your training camp is suboptimal, then at least you have history with Pantoja and potentially you work your way back. But none of these fighters are in the position to turn down title fights. But I would agree with you. I would like to see a little bit more developmental time for Muhammad Mokaev on the heels of what we saw this week. So.
Yeah, and listen, sometimes you don't know certain things until you get out there and you fight some higher level competition. And perhaps that was something that Mokaev already knew he needed to work on, or perhaps it wasn't. But either way, it's always going to be good intel for yourself, for your team, to know what you need to work on and improve. And I think we will see those improvements from Mokaev in the future.
I thought Alex Perez looked pretty good just given how his career has played out. Yes. I thought there were some definite moments for him in this fight, and hopefully he can stay in an active competition cycle because he's one of the good guys as well. But this one goes to Mohamed Mokaev, and it remains to be seen as to whether or not he, in fact, will be next for Alexandre Pantoja. The number one contender at flyweight right now is Brandon Royval after his win over Brandon Moreno about 10 days ago. We're going to save the Umar Nurmagomedov stuff just for a little bit. I do want to talk to Ray Longo extensively about that. So staying with the flyweights, Kenny, Steve Erceg, one of two performance of the night bonus winners. Flush knockout of Matt Schnell. It came at the 26-second mark of round 2. And I'm not sure if you saw the footage out there of Chris Tognoni coming up to Matt Schnell after the fight and saying, I'm not sure what was worse, the punch or you hitting your head on the canvas. And then Tognoni said, bro, he was like, yeah, you'll see it on the film. And Yves Edwards and Matt Schnell are standing there as if to say, bro, I don't know what's going to hurt you more right now. My left hand or going down and hitting your head on the fucking canvas. And I say that with respect to Tognoni, but could you be more tone deaf coming up to a concussed athlete and sort of saying, I'm not sure if it was the punch or you hitting your head that was worse? Like, no tact in that moment from a usually tactful guy. But I guess that's neither here nor there, Ken Flo. Steve Erceg out of Perth, Western Australia. It's pretty fucking good flyweight, man.
Dude, I would say he is a very good flyweight. I think that Schnell is a very skilled fighter, but, certainly has struggled in the past with his chin. And it's kind of dumb to say, right? Because anytime you get hit in the chin, it's never a good thing. But, this is more of an insurance policy. And I guess I should say that Schnell hasn't necessarily had the best insurance policy with that chin. But he does have a lot of skills. I just think that he was throwing himself into a position where Erceg was able to land very cleanly. And Erceg actually got caught in an exchange tight in the pocket there, which I was a little concerned about for Erceg, because Schnell can crack. He is dangerous. He can finish you both on the ground and on the feet. But Erceg was just a little cleaner, better fundamentals, little faster, putting together the better combinations. And this is a kid to watch, man. Do not sleep on Erceg. This kid's the truth, man. And as it is right now, based on his performance and Mokaev's, and listen, I totally understand. We're fighting two different opponents. Perez is legit, got a ton of experience. He's good everywhere. A better opponent, in my opinion, than probably Schnell. However, Erceg's looking like a guy who may fight for the belt in the future, may even win the belt in the future. This kid's good, dude. He's very, very clean.
I brought up a potential title fight in our fighter meeting, and he wasn't totally put off nor surprised by the question, because I think he looks at the landscape and health is wealth, and Amir Albazi with a neck injury is not going to be able to fight against Alexandre Pantoja. Hopefully Brandon Royval, who says he's healthy, can be the guy if they want to run that fight back. But Steve Erceg said he would say yes to Alexandre Pantoja May 4th at UFC 301, but obviously it's less than ideal. He goes all the way back home to Perth. And again, a fighter who's looking for developmental time. I thought the Brandon Moreno call out by Steve Erceg was actually pretty appropriate. All right, RAWDOG Royval coming up in 60 seconds, but the heat's going to be cranked up in Miami for UFC 299. The action, though, is going to be even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back in a bonus bet. So what is a no-sweat bet? Well, it's like getting another chance if you take an L. You get another shot at victory. You get a bonus bet back in the amount of your original bet if your first bet does not hit. Now, most of these fights on the 299 main card are close on the odds front. Sean O'Malley minus 245 against Marlon Chito Vera is actually the biggest betting favorite on the main card right now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code AFPOD. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code AFPOD. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One no-sweat bet per new customer. Issued as one bonus bet based on initial amount of losing bet. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/promos for deposit, wagering, and eligibility restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, now with us on the guest line, roughly 10 days after one of the biggest wins of his career, the number 1 ranked UFC flyweight contender, Brandon Royval. Appreciate the time today, brother. I know it's a busy time in your life. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, bro. I appreciate you guys for being.
So, well, congrats on a huge win over Brandon Moreno. I think overwhelmingly those of us watching at home just were hoping that you got your hand raised after just otherworldly volume and output and toughness, of course, after the early injury, all of which we have come to expect. So most of us thought you won the fight. What was your reaction, though, when they read the scorecards? I know you guys got the same fucking first name, but I was a little bit surprised to see your reaction in the moment.
I thought I was getting ripped off. When they said 49-46, I was like, I got ripped off, man. And
right.
I had it in my head before the fight that I was like, I need to go finish this fight because I'm not winning a decision in Mexico City. And I had that kind of put in my head for some reason. And then when they said the 49-46, I was like, there's no way. And then honestly, sometimes I forget how MMA scoring is. So I just thought the best I could do after they said 49-46 was a draw. So I was like, there goes a draw or something stupid like that. So in my head, I just like, I don't know. I put it as like I lost or as a draw. So when they said my name and then my coach was celebrating, I was like, oh shit, I won. And so it was like a nice, like, what is it? Like a relief. Like it was a nice relief.
Yeah.
And then like, that was like another thing too, is just like, cause you have some people saying that was a robbery or whatever, but it's just like, bro, I was in Mexico and you could just feel like the crowd was like Moreno. The first 2 rounds were going Moreno, and then it was silence. There was silence in that arena. It was silence in the arena. I got a few boos after they raised my hand, but it wasn't like anything like a real robbery where you hear people boo. Like you hear people that aren't fans of people booing, and it's like, this is a Moreno. I had 5 people in that crowd, 22,000 people in that arena. That's 21,995 people going against me in that arena. Right. And there wasn't much booing. There wasn't much booing after the decision.
Not easy to deal with, man. And it's my understanding you also had a knee injury during that fight. Did you tear your MCL? Did I hear that correctly during the fight? A
very slight tear, thank God, because I was really worried about it. And then I want a quick turnaround. You always want a quick turnaround, but just finding out that I need like 2 weeks of 2 or 3 weeks of just recovery and PT.
Yeah.
So I was pretty relieved when I saw like the doctor's note come back and it wasn't bad and all that stuff, because mid-fight I'm like, something's really wrong. Like something's really wrong, and like stepping on it felt weird, bouncing on it felt weird, throwing kicks felt super weird, and it was like anytime I like delivered a kick and then I brought it back, when I step on the ground, I could feel like a little shakiness, and it got me like really hesitant on like my whole game plan was throwing a lot of kicks, a lot of teeps, and just kind of keeping Brandon Moreno a little bit at bay and at long range, and it got me really hesitant right off the bat.
Yeah, having had an MCL tear, man, those are not fun. Having one during a fight, that's impressive that you were still able to get it done. I guess I'm curious, is how much did that past 5-rounder against Pantoja help you in preparation for this fight and during the fight itself?
Yeah, obviously there wasn't like much preparation time for the fight, but and considering that I just had a 5-round fight, we didn't do anything crazy as far as training. Like normally I'll do like 6-7 rounds in a row. I think the highest I went was 4 rounds in a row, and like we just kind of kept it really, really calm and relaxed, and just more of like a recovery based like training camp than anything. And just knowing that I could go 5 rounds, like already kind of built in. I was a little nervous about the whole Mexico City thing. Because like 2,000 feet isn't really much, but it's something, it is something. And it's like, I was telling my coach, I was just like, I don't want to be in the 4th round realizing that I should have came out 2 weeks earlier, or 3 weeks earlier, or whatever it is. And like in my head, I was like that. The first week we went out there, or the first day that we went out there was like that Tuesday. We were working out, and I honestly just forgot about the altitude. I got in really late, and we just had to get a workout in. So I was like, I did like an 1.5-hour workout. And at the very end of it, Alex was like, my cornerman, Alex Hernandez, was like, he's like, yeah, he goes, it seems like the altitude's not affecting you. And I was like, I forgot all about it. Like I didn't think about it. And then once you start thinking about it, I was like, well, am I tired? Am I okay? I started.
You didn't show it during the flight.
Yeah. I started checking it with my body a little bit. And once I kind of got past that, I was like, this is going to be nothing. Like if 5 rounds, I live in Denver, so it's really nothing to me anyways, you know?
One more for you. I know that, obviously it's possible you could fight Pantoja in the near future again. So I guess when you look back on that fight with him, what do you think the difference was in that fight?
Me, I feel like I game planned for a normal Pantoja of like him bringing chaos and being super chaotic. And I feel like if he would have been like going for the kill constantly, we had answers for everything. What I didn't game plan for, and this is also my fault for not making adjustments mid-fight, is just him being very hesitant and him being very, not just measured, but him just like playing the point game. He was playing the point game really. And I've never really seen him do that. He's always kind of go for broke, go for a kill type of guy. And I think he knows like the cardio aspect that I bring to it. And he was just like, all right, we're going to play it safe. We're going to get there. And we're just going to control time. And I just didn't make any adjustments on the fly. And that was like one thing that I wanted to show off in the Moreno fight is, one, I'm not getting held down. And two, it's like, I'm not getting taken down left and right. I'm not giving up easy takedowns. And I felt like I did a pretty good job at one, not getting held down, but not giving up any easy takedowns. Moreno went for a few body locks and kind of just gave up on it after like the first times I defended it. But I thought that was going to be like pretty heavily. His game plan was just wrestling, body lock, control, all that stuff.
Brandon Royval with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So you bet on yourself. And if fans don't know the history here, Brandon stepped in for an injured Amir Albazi on short notice to fight Brandon Moreno at altitude over 5 rounds in Mexico City to get yourself right back on track for a championship opportunity. And now you're the fucking number 1 contender again, right? Obviously, you're dealing with an MCL injury, but this past Saturday, right, we got a couple of ranked flyweights competing against each other. Number 8 versus number 7, Muhammad Mokaev taking on Alex Perez. And before that fight, you probably hear the champion Pantoja talk about Mokaev maybe being next. So a lot of us, even those of us like me calling the fight, are thinking about you as this fight is going on. And I'd imagine this is a pretty good result for you, right? That even though Mokaev wins, that he doesn't finish Alex Perez, he doesn't look particularly spectacular. As you try to potentially get this title fight on May 4th, are you not watching this fight play out and thinking like this is a pretty good result for me overall?
Yeah, I was all around happy with it because it's like Mokaev still gets the hype that's put behind him as him winning. He's an undefeated fighter, all that stuff. And it's like, eventually I want that fight for sure. So it's like, take away that hype, take away all that stuff. So eventually I want that fight, but more importantly, it was just like, I just thought that wasn't impressive at all. Like I wasn't too impressed by anything he did. And maybe I was being biased from him a little bit because I do like Alex Perez a lot. I thought Alex Perez won, but I could see it going either way in that fight.
Yeah.
But in that situation, I just didn't think he looked like a road beater or anything impressive. So I was just, like I said, all around, I thought it was a good day in the office for the good potential of me getting that title shot.
Right, for Team Royval.
Yeah. He didn't look like he was trying to finish the fight. He didn't look like he was doing anything too impressive. And that being said, is like Alex Perez, great guy, all the stuff, and I'm not trying to bash anybody, but it's like Alex Perez doesn't have a current win over any UFC fighter right now. And it's like, the closest thing he has to a win is fighting Mokaev right now, in my opinion. So it's just like,
right.
I don't know. I just wasn't impressed.
So in terms of May 4th and the possibility of you fighting in Rio de Janeiro at UFC 301, I hate to put you on the spot, but how realistic is that? And I'll follow it up by just saying, I have tweeted in the past that Brandon Royval might be the most electric, exciting fighter in MMA. And look no further than just all the output essentially on one leg just 10 days ago in Mexico City. There's no doubt that you have the style, I think, to beat Alexandre Pantoja. Do you feel like the only thing that's working against you is that you just fought him recently?
Yeah, I think that. And it's like, I think it's just that I fought him recently on his last fight. I don't really have a big name necessarily to kind of like steal the show, because it's like, I don't think that, I think if Moreno would have won that fight, I think there's no doubt that he was getting the next title shot. I think if I won the fight, even though his last loss was to Alexandre Pantoja, his last fight before mine was against Alexandre Pantoja, the situation changed when you have a whole country backing you and stuff. And it's like, I don't necessarily have that star power. And that's what kind of like fucks me over in the situation of like, do I get the immediate rematch? Do I get this? And it's like, So I guess that's what scares me, but it's just like, as far as the matchup and all that stuff is like, I know I could beat Alexandre Pantoja. I know I can win that fight. I know that I have the skill set to beat that guy. I think he's an amazing fighter. Don't get me wrong. I think the world of him for sure. That being said, I know I could win that fight. And even in those like 4 or 5 weeks that I had to go train for Moreno, it's like, you've seen those little adjustments of me not getting taken down or giving up easy takedowns. It's like, the solution that I had where I lost the fight to Alexandre Pantoja are easy fixes for me. They're very easy fixes for me, and I just needed to change my mindset a little bit in that fight. And I wish I would have did it then, because I could be in a whole different seat right now.
Well, and I do think you're selling yourself a little bit short as far as the star power is concerned. I thought you maximized your microphone time in Mexico City, and your style always leads the dance. Like, we as commentators can promote the shit out of anything you're doing, bro. So please don't sell yourself short. I want to get you out of here on this because AJ Cunningham is a really interesting story. He made his UFC debut this past weekend on short notice against Ludovic Klein. He shows up at Factory X. He was broke 2 weeks ago. A sponsor gave him some money. That allowed him to go to Factory X. And the one guy that he had the nicest things to say about in our fighter meeting was yourself. So what can you tell us about AJ Cunningham and his future now at Factory X?
Yeah, so I was gone that whole entire week that he was at. I guess he was only there for a couple of days.
Right.
I was gone that whole entire time. So it's like, I didn't actually get to spend time with him at the gym. But I have spent maybe I cut weight, or I was out there for a fight, and he just fought. So I was out at the PI with the fight. So I hung out with him for like a couple of days in a row, and like, just one of the nicest people I've ever met, man. It was just like nothing but a pleasure to be around him. It's one of those dudes that you're like, this is crazy. He's a fighter, you know, like you get around these big guys, and it's like a lot of these guys, you know, but it's like, you take the fact that they're actually fighters away from them, and you just talk to them, and you're like, dang, this is like a really nice human being. Like, I can't believe he goes in there and hurts people. And
right.
This is what he gets paid to do. So it was really cool to see him get that call up. And if he comes back to Factory X, it'd be really cool to just start training with him and grow with him and all that stuff, because, that kid has a lot of heart. And it's like, I feel like what the 35 division and then myself, because we don't have too many flyweights in our gym.
Yeah.
But we have a killer 35 division that it's like his growth is going to be amazing in there.
Yeah, no, and I know he's excited to get back there sooner rather than later. But Brandon Royval could very well find himself back at a championship setting as soon as May 4th in Rio. On Instagram, you can find him at BRoyval, BRoyval. My man, great to see you. Very gracious of you to join us today. Wish you all the best. And I do hope to see you in South America come the 1st of May, buddy. So have a good week, get healthy, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for your time.
All right, there he is, the #1 ranked UFC flyweight contender, Brandon Royval. And AJ Cunningham is a really interesting story, Kenny. So he lost to Ludovic Klein due to a front kick to the body this weekend. But just a crazy story. Came off Dana White's Contender Series. He was forcibly injected with steroids when he was like 5 and 6 years old. He was beaten like hell when he was a kid. You know, at one point they poured spoiled condiments on him and left him to sleep in the pit outside. I mean, just the kid went through hell. And to see him now become a UFC fighter is just so inspiring, and I think emotional for a lot of us, especially as parents as well. All right, Ray Longo coming up in 60 seconds. But if you're looking to level up your nicotine routine, Lucy is your answer. 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. And not only can you change up the format in which you ingest this stuff, pouches, breakers, or gum, but you can choose your strength from as little as 2 milligrams to as high as 12 if perhaps you've been underwhelmed by the effects of other nicotine pouches. You can also choose your flavor, such as mint, apple, ice, espresso, or mango. One customer review says, best nicotine pouches I've ever found. Feel and taste great. Couldn't be happier with my monthly subscription. Another user acknowledges receiving all-day focus from this clean nicotine alternative. And don't forget to check out those aforementioned Lucy breakers, nicotine pouches with a tiny capsule inside, the product that really sets Lucy apart. So let us help you level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/AFPod and use promo code AFPod to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use code AFPod to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. All right, time now to get to the star of the show. Let us get to the Ray Longo Minute.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute.
Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
My guys, How we doing?
Yeah, Raymond.
Kind of got you centered in there. How we feeling today, guys?
Better now.
What up?
Oh, wow.
Love you, buddy. How we doing, man?
Yeah, good. Came off a good weekend. Just a couple of shout outs to get the things going. Justin Montalvo back on track. Great win. Ring of Combat. And we had another kid, Roman, another Georgian kid, another really nice guy, win a 45 title. So hats off to those two guys. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody else, but I think I'm good.
No, so I saw the photos. You were wearing a UFC fight kit into the cage when you're cornering guys at Ring of Combat. Is that right?
I had the jacket on, yeah.
The jacket on? Yeah, half the fight kit.
Yeah, half the fight kit.
So it got me thinking.
Really? You were thinking?
Well, the Anik Florian podcast just sponsored a couple soccer teams, and we're potentially going to get into the business of sponsoring fighters, right?
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't know if you want to wear like a Longo Weidman MMA jumpsuit or an Anik Florian podcast jumpsuit, but I don't know that you need to be wearing that UFC fight kit top when you're cornering your guys regionally, right? I mean, we could outfit you in some stuff, pay you a little side wager.
100%.
All right.
Well, we got those sweatpants, Ray. They're coming out. So one picture of me on your left butt cheek and a picture of John on the right butt cheek.
I'm all in.
Yes,
I'm
there
all
we
in.
go.
Just stay away from the middle of those two butt cheeks and you're fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you are always of a great disposition, but there was obviously a time last year where you had that hip replacement surgery and you were going through it, and it just seems like you've come out the other side in a really good way. So can you give our listeners and viewers an update on that? Because it seems like you're moving awfully well now, Raymond.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for asking. I appreciate it. Yeah, 6 months in, I feel good. Maybe like 5% little hitch, but doesn't affect me at all. But like maybe getting in the car, I feel something that I used to feel anyway. So, but everything, yeah, life-changing. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Life-changing. So thank you very much. And I'm glad to everybody out there, just stay in shape. So in case you have to go through something like this, I think you'll bounce back quick.
Right.
That's it. And then just do the right thing. Eat right, hydrate, get a good doctor, and I think you're good to go.
And Ray, is the hope or the prognosis that will eventually go away over time, that it's just like kind of rehab and strength and all that stuff?
I'm going to say, yeah, but I mean, they didn't really know. Like the last time I was at PT, it was still maybe only like 4 months in. So, I mean, they do cut your bone in half and,
right.
It's not sometimes when I think about it, I go, I wish I could have just did anything else but that. But
right.
I just ran into the point where it had to be done. And look, they're doing so many today that they have it down to science. There's certain approaches too, John. I think guys are literally walking out of the hospital the next day or two, walking without the walker, which is crazy. But I chose to do the more common approach, the posterior approach, as opposed to the anterior approach. And I just went with this one. I don't want no nerves involved. Just separate the muscle, get in there, get out, and maybe a little extra rehab. But I think it's all going to pay off in the end. But thank you very much for it. It is life changing. It's great to walk through an airport. You take walking for granted. You take so many things for granted. And my mindset was almost, I probably listened to David Coggins too much. Like so it's pain. I'll just go through it. But it was. I don't know what I'm messed up. But I'm glad people talked me into doing it, and I got it.
Had to be done. I mean, I remember for a lot of us as your dear friends, the visuals of seeing you sort of get helped down the octagon stairs.
Yeah, it sucked.
So thankfully those are a thing of the past. But yeah, modern medicine is crazy, right? I had a spiral fracture of my femur in 1982. Me and my twin brother thought we would move a TV. It fell off the stand. I go into shock immediately. And in 1982, I'm in traction for 8 weeks, taking a shit in a bedpan, right?
Yeah.
You have a spiral fracture of your femur now as like an 8-year-old boy. They have you walking on it the next day, even after surgery with titanium in it. So obviously things have changed a lot.
Incredible.
Compared to those of us born in the 1970s. All right, a lot to get to with Ray. So I did my first show at the UFC Apex in about 2 years. And I can just say as a commentator, when I have the cans on, I'm not really thinking about much. So when a fight ends, I mean, I'm still veins popping out of the neck. It doesn't faze me, right? But there are times when either these fights begin right at the outset of a fight or when the coaches are particularly quiet, where you can hear a fucking pin
100%.
drop.
Yep.
And I'm just curious, Ray, what your experience is like coaching in that venue, because it's just different, man. It's just different.
Well, I think for the coaches, and I think they'll agree, it's like coaching during a sparring session at your gym. You know what I mean? You have maybe 20, 30 guys around. There's obviously a little more, but, you know, you could hear a pin drop. So I think I'm used to it. You're definitely way more engaged with the athlete because he could hear everything you're saying. And I have absolutely no problem with it, you know. And plus you could hear what the other corner's saying. That's always funny. To hear. So
part of the reason I bring it up, and Kenny, I do want to get your thoughts on this, even if you haven't been in this atmosphere specifically, but I thought Aiemann Zahabi did enough to beat Javid Basharat. He won by unanimous decision 29-28 times 3. And I think our call is reflective of that sentiment. I thought he had the more impactful strikes and he won the fight, right? But it was somehow brought up during the broadcast that the coaches can really lean into a left hook landing and maybe have some sort of sway on the judges. And I do think Firas Zahabi, perhaps in a calculated way, did a really nice job of letting the world fucking know every time his younger brother landed a strike. And I do think there is something to that, even if I believe the right guy won the fight. Ken Flo, any thoughts on that?
100%. Listen, I think it plays a factor, especially if it's a punch that kind of skims, or even if it misses and you go, oh, great job. You know, even those little things, because let's face it, you know, the judges aren't always at the best angle on the side of the octagon. So if they hear you go, oh, great job, you know, they'll just concede and go, oh, I guess he must have landed that one. He's cheering on his fighter, right? I mean, so I think it's an interesting tactic, and it's one that obviously plays itself much better in a venue like the Apex than, say, at, you know, T-Mobile, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. And conversely, if you're struggling with your fighter, the judges know that too, which sucks. Yeah. So you got to be very, very careful in that environment because it goes both ways. You know what I mean? So that part I definitely don't like about it. But I listen. You know, I had the fights in Atlantic City, so there was an early call, right, John? So I kind of was backtracking. That fight I did look at, but Zahabi, one thing he did do, like when he made Basharat miss, I mean, he came back with 4 or 5 good punches. He did a fantastic job in that fight. Look, either way, one guy was going to be very pissed off, I think. It's that type of fight. But Zahabi, definitely, I think you said it. The impact strike is he would just get back enough and he would fire back with combos where the other guy was going forward. He was making a fight, but, you know, either way. But Zahabi did a great job. It was a good fight. And I think the right guy won it, but it was one of those fights you knew somebody was going to be pissed off. And yeah, I mean, as a coach, that's an old, you know, tactic. You just start screaming at anything just to try to influence the judges. But then when your guy's not doing good and you're like, dude, come on, man, we got to do more. You're basically telling the judges you think your guy's losing. That part sucks. I don't like it because you want to motivate your guy, even if that's not even what you feel sometimes, right?
It's a great point.
Yeah, that is an amazing point about coming down too hard on your fighter in that type of atmosphere. It is fucking insane that these judges don't have noise canceled, though, to begin with, right? I mean, don't even get us started. There's no reason for that.
That I like more than open scoring.
Yeah. All right, well, we can talk about open scoring time permitting, but we have too many things to get into, so I can't open that can. And Kenny, I just have to say it is a little bit nostalgic for me. If you don't know, Firas Zahabi was the chief corner of Kenny Florian towards the end of his career. So for me, seeing Firas coaching is a little bit nostalgic to me. But Ken Flo, how about your former fucking training partner, Aiemann Zahabi, 4 straight wins in the UFC right now?
Dude, it was great to see because, you know, Aiemann was one of the guys that I would bring out to Boston to help me train, and just a great soldier, man. He was down for whatever, whenever. Great training partner, great kid, great human being. And to see him do that well against a very tough opponent was awesome because the first round wasn't going great. And the fact that he was able to make those adjustments and, in my opinion, really win that fight and win those last 2 rounds, I think shows a level of grit and intelligence that is going to serve him well moving forward. So getting that momentum now, that's got to feel great, man. Zahabi, both Firas and Aiemann are 2 great people that I really enjoy being around.
Grit is a good word. All right, Ray, a lot of things we want to get to with you today. I wouldn't mind starting with Umar Nurmagomedov. He is still undefeated, but he did suffer a flash knockout early in this fight against the newcomer Beksat Almakhan, and I think Almakhan is going to be heard from, but there are just a lot of public opinions about Umar. And let me just start by saying he is such an elite human being, one of my favorite humans on the roster. His ability to learn and communicate in English and say exactly what's on his mind in his second or third language is so impressive. I do think he has a great chance to be a future world champion. But there are some people who aren't necessarily sold. I like that he took on this little-known kid making his UFC debut, but maybe not the dominant Umar Nurmagomedov effort that a lot of people expected, even though one of the scorecards said 30-25. So you spent a lot of time studying the elite bantamweights in the world. In your mind, what are your thoughts on Umar Nurmagomedov and how he stacks up?
Yeah, look, I mean, first off, exactly what you said, the way they articulate themselves is something, I think because it's their second language, it just comes across as simple, but so intelligent and so like common sense oriented that it's a pleasure to listen to either, because I always love listening to Khabib. I always thought you got just man, why couldn't I think of that? Just a nice, honest approach. I mean, the fight, I mean, look, he got clipped. I mean, it was, he went back to the wrestling. My problem is like, and I don't want to throw us back to like Pumi, but everybody, like they bitch about his wrestling. But as soon as this kid got clipped, he went to his wrestling, which he should do. That's his strength. But we're not going to criticize the guy for that. I think Michael Johnson clipped Khabib that time, but all right, everybody gets clipped. So I think it was a great fight for Umar Nurmagomedov. I think he's right where he wants to be. We got to up the competition a little bit, but I think who do you call it? Corey Sandhagen. I think that would be a great challenge for him. We'd have to see how he does in like a 5-round fight, which I'm assuming that would 100% be. And that's it. Yeah, I mean, he got caught, but he made the adjustments and he did what he had to do to win. So I like watching him fight. And I think
I do too.
Like you said, I think if he said he had problems before that camp, he's the type of guy I 100% believe, because everybody has problems. That's not an uncommon thing to, I get a guy 2 weeks away and he tweaks his wrist. It's just so upsetting. So anything could happen leading up to a fight. And when a guy is able to articulate like that, I buy it. So I think it was a great win for him.
Kenny, one of the biggest challenges as an elite MMA athlete is staying healthy, right? And then once you get there, like Sean O'Malley, the one question I have is, can his durability last with 2 or 3 title defenses in a calendar year? I don't think Sean O'Malley will ever defend the title 3 times in a year. But Kempfla, what are your thoughts on Umar Nurmagomedov, what we saw this weekend, and a potential main event now moving forward against Corey Sandhagen or somebody else?
Yeah, listen, staying healthy is very difficult in mixed martial arts, right? That there's an element where you need to train hard to prepare for that fight. But yeah, no, listen, I thought Nurmagomedov looked great. I think he did it the Nurmagomedov way, which was the safest path to victory here. First of all, it showed that he knows how to adjust and deal with a little bit of adversity there. He faced a very tough striker. For those that didn't do their homework and didn't follow this fighter from Kazakhstan, the kid's a killer. I mean, he's extremely dangerous. So he found a way to win, and his kicking game looked great as always. I thought he did a great job of being the longer, larger man when they were on the feet. And then he just dominated on the floor, man. Just continued to outposition him. And just like we talked about on the last podcast, he ended up drowning him, right? It's like first round, does okay. Second round, starting to pull away from. Third round, you're just like, please get the hell off of me. And just outpositioned him and really didn't really do it with submissions, but he did it with his striking. And that, at the end of the day, is what you should do. You get better position on someone, you got to integrate your strikes. And that many times is a way more powerful indicator of you winning those rounds than it is sometimes with these judges where you get them in a bunch of submissions. It's more impressive, in my opinion, when you dominate with positioning and striking. And that's what the Nurmagomedovs do better than anyone in the game. Them and their whole camp, they have this system, man, and it works. You get these great wrestlers, you get better position, then you integrate the striking, rinse, wash, repeat.
Yeah.
Hey,
Umar Nurmagomedov, go ahead.
Yeah, John, I got to interrupt you. It just popped into my head. I want to also shout out young Marcus from the Serra Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Had a great win, back and forth. Kenny, you would have loved it. Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of, couple of mistakes here and there, but young Marcus is a nice kid, and I just want to give him a shout out. I forgot all about that talking. It was a long week. It was a long weekend, but young Marcus, everybody's with you, buddy. Great win for him. He had to come back, deal with adversity. It was good, and I apologize for the interruption, but that thought would have left my head in the 2 seconds if I don't jump in there.
No
You're
interruption
the
at all. That
star
was great.
of the show. Never forget that.
Oh, okay, and I got a good Marab story for you.
All right. Well, can you table the Marab story for 1 second so I can just say, let's fucking go, Marcus.
Let's go,
We're all
man.
behind you, Marcus.
Yeah.
So Umar Nurmagomedov had a main event scheduled with Corey Sandhagen. He had to pull out due to injury. Corey Sandhagen is relatively warm to making that fight again if he is not next to challenge for the world title. So it's a big time in the bantamweight division. We'll get Ray's thoughts on UFC 299 and some of the bantamweight ramifications later. But you've got a great Marab story right now. So the floor is yours.
So yesterday, a guy, this guy's name is Boris. I want to shout out to Boris. Boris was the guy that brought Marab over. Marab lived with him. And you all heard the story before, but it was interesting talking to him that it's got to be a 1 in 20 million chance I even got to meet Marab at the gym, because the story, like he told, like I was with Weidman. Weidman was, I think, preparing for Anderson Silva. We were at Renzo Gracie Academy, and he said he was there with Marab and this other guy, David, and they were supposed to be there the following week, but the guy changed his mind, said, meet me there this week. And I was walking out the door. We were done, and David, another one of the Georgian guys, tells Boris, that's the trainer of Eddie Gordon, who fought at the Ring of Combat. He said, man, I like to say hello to him. And I was literally leaving out the door, and they caught me. That's what he's saying. I remember meeting him, but not like when it was. But he said it was just a chance thing that the guy just came over and said, you remember me? And I said, oh, yeah, of course. And then, I said, you guys live in the city? He goes, no, we live in Garden City. I just opened up the school in Garden City. It was like just weird that the way he told the story was like, that could have never happened. You know what I mean? When I look back on it. So shout out to Boris. He got those guys over here. He's a great guy. And it just got me yesterday like that. Like the way he said you were leaving, like, we weren't even going to say hello. And then the guy says, no, I'd really like to say hello. And the rest is history, my man.
Well, so what do you think would have happened if that chance meeting had not happened, that Aljamain Sterling and Marab Dvalishvili would never have connected and you would have never connected with him? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, never would have connected.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. All right. You know what else is crazy?
Yeah, baby.
How about Vinicius Oliveira's knockout of Bernardo Sopai Kenflo? If you don't know, a little flying switch knee while his opponent, however tough, was sort of retreating towards the fence. That might be the knockout of the year, Kenflo. It's March 4th, but how about fucking that shit?
Nasty, nasty, nasty. And it's crazy because if you saw the first round, you're like, well, yeah, like Sopai won, right? I mean, he's the guy who won. But if you didn't, and then you see round 2 start to shift over. And once he got that momentum and once he started to win that fight, he never allowed Sopai back into the fight. And dude, finishing a fight in that manner, I mean, there's not a whole lot of knockouts that are better than a flying knee. And the way that he hit it, I mean, he landed all of that. Just a nasty, nasty knockout. And it's one of those also that was concerning because I don't know if Sopai is going to be the same after that one, dude. I mean, that was a net for a young fighter to take a shot like that.
Right.
Dude, I mean, on a physical level, on a spiritual level, that's where you start to question, do I want to be in here anymore? Because that was about as nasty as a KO that you will see, dude. Just fantastic. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And Kenny, what you said, I mean, Steve Lee goes to me, did you see the knockout? I go, what knockout? He goes, what are you talking about? It's crazy. It was nuts. And I had to go back and look at the fight. So I just go back. I pick it up in the 3rd round. I never saw the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
So I'm going, because he said it was a good fight. It was, starting to shift. And I'm like, what I saw in the 3rd round was not looking good for the other guy. Right. So then I saw the knockout. I go, holy crap, man, that was crazy. But I missed the first 2 rounds. So.
Yeah, stiff as a ball.
I mean, Sopai stiff as a board, sort of arms crouched like underneath him. Some scary visuals. And I watched a lot of film on this Bernardo Sopai leading up to this fight. I loved this matchup, right? And Vinicius Oliveira, by the way, getting $100,000 in bonus money, fight of the night and performance of the night. Wow. But Sopai, I'm watching this film of him when he's 19, right? Made his pro debut when he was 15, had an amateur fight and his pro debut on the same night. Khamzat Chimaev was in his corner, actually, for his previous last fight, a win last December. But I just was really impressed with this young kid. I was impressed with Vinicius as well, but I do really feel for Bernardo Sopai, Ken Flo, to your point, right? Just absorbing this type of damage and then his coach being like, come on, dude, like stay in it. Like, I know you got the heart and the determination to stay in the fight, and he did, but that's a really concussive blow, man. It really is. And listen, Ray, I would go back and watch it because this kid's actually a good fighter. He's got some serious skills. And when he was the hammer, man, he was looking great. Wow. I think there was a certain shift that happened. He got hurt. He got a little tired. He started to doubt himself. And that's where that youth and inexperience may have taken over. I don't think it was necessarily a lack of heart. It may have been that. I don't want to accuse him of that. But once that shift happened, it was like two different fights, two different fighters, just wild stuff. So, if he can come back from that, I do think he could be a very good fighter, but certainly looked outsized by Oliveira in that fight too. Oliveira just looked massive for that weight class.
And I think that's what made the knee worse. He had the long, lanky legs, and dude, it just probably added an extra 100 pounds of force. You know what I mean? It was bad. But it is fine. I'm going to go back and look at it because I heard good things. But what I saw in the third round, I didn't even know what anybody was talking about. I go, this guy looks like he's clearly losing the fight. But I will go back and look because I heard the kid's an outstanding fighter. And Vinicius Oliveira is an outstanding fighter and finisher. And I think he showed you a lot of heart to come back from some compromising moments in that fight. What a fight that was. And that's going to put a bow on UFC Fight Night Rosenstrike versus Gaziv. I would like to spend our remaining time with Raymond Peter Longo on UFC 299 if I could. A lot of bantamweights in action, including Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera. O'Malley inching up as far as the betting price is concerned. Not quite a 3-1 favorite, but he is a decided favorite this weekend against Marlon Chito Vera. What are your thoughts on the bantamweight title fight? Ray? Yeah, I mean, I think look, O'Malley's a sharpshooter, great footwork. Chito sometimes starts a little slow, but finishes strong. The 5 rounds will definitely play into this fight. If Chito's going to get him, it's probably going to get him towards the end. But we'll see how this is O'Malley's first 5-round fight, right? Well, it's his first title defense. Yeah, so he was scheduled for 5 against your guy. Didn't need 5. Didn't need 5. Wow. All right, we'll go with that. Just fucking around. Oh, yeah. Man, come on. I'll tell you, when you're on top, Kenny, everybody loves you. When you're not, man, exactly. That is a perfect example. It's a cruel game. It's a cruel. Yeah, you gotta have mud in your veins. But you do. No, so he did. So I think I'm going to say O'Malley probably gets the job done, but I'm kind of curious to see the durability. And if Chito comes in as the Chito we know, because he was off, I thought, in the Sandhagen fight, was it? He was was starting slow and he never really got going. But if Chito could start chopping his legs right from the beginning and putting some pressure on him, making him work, I think he could set up for a victory in the later rounds. You know what moves betting lines when people like Aljamain Sterling say things like, the only thing I'm concerned about is I'm hearing through the grapevine that Chito didn't really have a great camp. A lot of guys that have trained with Chito, Sterling, divulged. Where am I reading this, by the way, Cody? If you could get me the credit. I don't know how true that is. I'd imagine it's Aljo's podcast, but I want the weekly scraps. All right. So with that said, I'm leaning towards O'Malley to get it done. I'm going to say I don't think he finishes. Whatever. All right. So so Aljo's suggestive of the fact that maybe Chito didn't have a great camp. That is the type of thing that legitimately could move a betting line. But we'll see what happens. I think he's going to have to separate Chito from consciousness if he's going to get that job done. Long game might be another thing. Also on tap in your division, Petr Yan taking on Song Yadong in the bantamweight division, right? I mean, isn't it amazing that Petr Yan with his skills is staring at 4 straight losses if he loses to Song Yadong? It's amazing. And I'll tell you what's even more amazing. It's almost like the story I told you, 1 in 20 million. He made that decision and knee Aljo in the head, and his life was never the same. Yeah. One shot. He was on his way. It's just, you gotta stay true to yourself and just do the right thing, I guess. But that, the fact that he's looking at four in a row is, for a guy that was coming up, that was really unstoppable, is amazing. Yeah. So I think Jan gets the job done, though, Kenny.
Yeah, and that, that illegal knee, it feels like it was 8 years ago. Like it's easy to forget about things like that. And I don't know, maybe for me, just because the sport moves so fast, but that's crazy. You're absolutely correct.
I think it's insane. One guy's life was changed for the better, and one guy's life was just changed for the worse. So I guess the gods have spoken,
Indeed.
That really is interesting.
Wait, are we bypassing the heavyweight fight?
No, you can talk about the heavyweights at the Apex, of course.
I mean, how was it being there? I mean, you were in an environment where everybody could hear everything. The guy looked like he just. I mean, what the hell was I looking at?
Well, I mean, I could compare some of my visuals during my strength of conditioning workouts to Shamil Gazib, right? Just mouth open. I don't even think he needs a new mouthpiece. I just think he needs to get on a VersaClimber or something. But no, I mean, I really enjoyed getting to know Shamil Gazib, and we doing our fighter meetings, right? And I'm in my oh, that's not going to work. Sorry, Cody. So I'm doing my fighter meeting. I just went to the 3 wide shop, but I'm doing my fighter meeting with Gazib, and he sees this studio and he sees Max Holloway and Khabib. And so the first thing he says in our fighter meeting is like, when am I going to get my picture on the wall? So I love this guy right away. But yeah, it didn't have much in him necessarily, but no, I don't know. I'm sure people hear a lot of our commentary. It's a weird setting in which to be calling fights.
Well, I'm saying like, it was interesting. I think we got to give Goddard some credit. No, I mean, he sensed something was wrong, which I agree with 100%. And he corrected, and he's there to make to make sure everything's fair and protect the fighter. I thought he did a great job with that, but we'd never seen that before, right? Where, you're demanding like an interpreter. But I mean, body language, I think anybody could tell watching the TV that the guy definitely didn't want to be there. Like I just wasn't sure if he couldn't see, or he said the guy's jab was so fast he couldn't see, Two different. What am I?
I wasn't necessarily catching an early flight. I was on a red eye, but I didn't need to necessarily see another 5 minutes. I was good after the first 20. By the way, it was so windy in Las Vegas that a lot of people had their flights canceled. Daniel Cormier ended up driving home, actually, the 7 hours to Northern California. But I was staying at the brand new Durango, which is just an unbelievable establishment. But one of the doors in the main lobby shattered from the wind, and that's a brand new building. So it just gives you some idea of just how windy it was in Las Vegas. All right, one final thing for you, Raymond, on UFC 299, if I could. So Benoit Saint-Denis got your guy, Matt Frivola. He incidentally also didn't need the full time, if we're really digging in. He was also able to finish one of your guys.
Let's dig in.
I'm just messing around. Sal Frivola, the bulldozer, one of my favorite people, listens and watches the Anik Florian podcast. Guy probably fucking hates me now. I love the Frivolas, but you and I, Raymond, both knew the extent to which Benoit Saint-Denis was a problem back then, and now we're seeing money continuously pour in on him against Dustin Poirier this weekend. Right now, Dustin Poirier is the plus 180 underdog against Benoit Saint-Denis. Can't tell you where it's going to close, but please give us everything you can, having prepared for Benoit Saint-Denis, on how you think this co-main event will go.
Yeah, look, man, Dustin better have put in a real serious camp, because this guy is coming guns blazing. And, look, it seems like the timing is right. This guy's coming up. Dustin's been there, done that. To take on a guy like this, I give Dustin credit. I don't see the upside of this fight for him except a paycheck. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's going to be a really, really tough challenge for Dustin, because I think it's going to be one of those grinding fights that normally I think he's always up for. I just don't know if he's still up for it. He's definitely the more skillful of the two, but we've seen it where heart and desire and pressure just can eliminate that. So I think they got it right. I think he's coming off of that knockout with Gaethje.
Yep,
everything's leaning not in his favor, I think.
Yeah. Well, don't discount the skin fade in all of this, because even though I've had this weird obsession shaving my head since I was like 12 years old, all you guys who grow out your hair and go to Turkey for hair transplants, I've been trying to get Dustin Poirier to.
Oh, man.
Gosh.
John,
I've been trying to. I'm a little underslept, Kenflo. But I've been trying to get Dustin Poirier to go back to the skin fade, since we were in like Hidalgo, Texas in 2016. Not that I don't think he looks good with like the boys' regular haircut, right? Or whatever, the Drew Dober with all the gel and stuff. But skin fade Dustin Poirier is a different animal, and he has brought the skin fade back for this training camp. So I don't think that can be lost in all of this.
That's huge.
Hey, Ray, we appreciate you tweaking your schedule a little bit. Would you, if you don't know, normally Raymond joins us at about 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We went like 12:45 p.m. today. How does that affect your schedule? Be honest with us.
Why are we making this a definite?
No. I'm just curious.
I'm good either way. I try to
You're good either way.
Plan my Mondays around you guys.
You're amazing. Well, it'll probably be closer to the AM slot next week when we recap UFC 299. But I will leave you with this. How are you liking the new setup? Was it easy? I mean, the whole goal is that you're not messing with headgear and things, that you can just get in there, and it should get easier every week. So how was it today? Good?
Thumbs up. Yeah, really good.
Yeah? Because you sound great. You look great.
I don't know if I look great, but hopefully I sound good.
You sound amazing.
What are you guys, tanning now? I mean, you got white teeth, you're tanning. Why got to get veneers, get back in the sun? Holy shit.
No, my teeth aren't that white. They're certainly not that straight. But no, I mean, I live in South Florida and I have a naturally dark complexion. I don't know what Kenflo has to say about being darker than you.
I look like white. I look white as a ghost. It's got to be the lighting, no?
Well, Petrie makes you look black. So, but you do sound and look great, and we appreciate the commitment to the show. I know there's a segment of our viewership that's upset that you're not in a toilet stall or having technical issues, but I am not among those listeners. So,
I think, John, I see stand up in the horizon for you after today. He was on fire, Kenny. No,
he was. Yeah,
I'm trying to be a rapper
with little spice. It's like perfect. Yeah,
I'm actually trying to be a rapper next.
Wow,
I've been writing a track called One More Sleep, but we might have to pivot and call it Greatest of All Time. I'm only going to have one verse, too. I'm not the star rapper in this track whatsoever. I'm only going to have one verse. But Leona Lewis has a song called One More Sleep.
Wow.
And so I just, I don't know. I don't want to. I got to tread lightly with Leona Lewis on One More Sleep. That's all.
Definitely tread.
But you're saying if I open up for somebody and do stand-up comedy, you'd come and support that initiative?
Oh, I'd come and heckle the shit out of you. But that's supportive, like supportive heckling, part of the show.
Yeah, I'm here to be roasted. All right, Raymond. Well, if you don't have anything else, I would suggest to you that you have a great day and a better evening, and we'll talk to you next Monday to recap UFC 299.
My guys. Right. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you, buddy. The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Yeah, we tweaked the schedule a little bit, had a couple fighters joining us. But when I hear that Ray sort of revolves his Monday around us, that doesn't sit great with me. So we'll try to get Raymond back to his regular time slot next week.
Ray's the man.
All right, now with us, a man I am absolutely thrilled to get the chance to talk to. One of the best middleweights in the world, the PFL Bellator Super Belt winner, the Bellator middleweight world champion, one of American Top Team's finest. Johnny Eblen is with us. Johnny, appreciate your time today, sir. How are we doing?
Yeah, no problem, bro. Doing well. Just boxed and wrestled and, just going about my day and, enjoying the win.
Enjoying the fruits of the labor. Are those prescription glasses? I like your glasses.
Yes, sir. They sure are.
Nice.
I ran out of contacts a while back, so I've just been sporting these glasses ever since, and I think I need to go back to the eye doctor and get some more contacts, and I need another pair of lenses like this, something a little different, I think.
Well, it's good to see you in any capacity. I do want to go backwards before we spin it forward, if I could. So 2015, after a decorated, if injury plagued, career wrestling for the University of Missouri, you moved to Florida. You're working at a paving company, coaching wrestling on the side. And forgive my ignorance, but to what extent is MMA and MMA fighting on your radar at that point in time in your life?
Literally nothing I was looking to do. I was more so, I just knew what MMA was. My brother had done it as an amateur when I was growing up, and he ended up, getting a normal job. I went on to wrestle in college, and then I moved down to Florida for a job, and, I ended up kind of stumbling into ATT. Nothing like nothing that I personally like seek to do, if that makes any sense. I more so just made connections through the wrestling world by meeting Steve Mocco.
All right, so you meet Steve Mocco, and I'd imagine you sort of recognize that you might be good at this pretty quickly. I think you were fighting in the amateur ranks maybe about a year or so later. Is that right?
Not even a year. I trained for a few months, and then I took an amateur fight in a bar. And I mean, from there on, it was just history. I ended up, fighting a couple more times amateur. I ended up fighting like pretty tough guys. They were pretty much pro fights. And Mike was like, you should just go pro, man, get paid. And then it ended up linking up with Shamrock FC, Jesse Finney. And he hooked me up with some good fights to get my feet wet. And it was a hometown thing. So I got to sell some tickets, see my family. And it was a good way to kind of start my career.
Excuse me. All right. Then we're going to fast forward to 2022, Uncasville, Connecticut. You're facing the legend Gegard Mousasi for the Bellator middleweight title. Pretty big underdog, if I recall, in that fight. But I'd imagine confident as ever. How confident were you fighting Mousasi back then?
I mean, I was confident in my ability to fight him. More so, I was just anxious because I had never fought a guy to his level. So I wasn't sure. You never know until you're actually in there. I was a little nervous going in, but I knew, from my training partners, from just all the people that I go with, I know what level I'm at. And it was just a matter of doing it on a big stage and doing it for a belt. And, when that occasion came up, I had to rise to that occasion and fight like I do when I train, and I sure did rise to the occasion, and I put it on Mousasi. And, at the end of it, I was like, hell yeah, this is what I trained for. This is what I worked hard for.
And Johnny, on your last fight, you were a favorite heading into that one. And I think, I had the opportunity to see Impa and all the improvements that he made over the last year. Definitely vast improvements. Were you surprised by Impa during that fight at all?
I was a little surprised. I think I fought more at his level. I was trying to be more exciting. I was trying to stay in the pocket more and trade more and, kind of like fight him at his game, which was not the smartest thing to do, and thankfully it ended up the way that it did. And I ended up with a win, but, looking back at it, I should have fought a bit smarter. I should have, utilized my range, utilized my footwork and movement, and not just, hey man, we're going to stand and bang a bit. I could have definitely used my fight IQ a bit more. But not to take anything away from Impa. He's gotten a lot better. He can hit hard. He's a good athlete. And yeah, man, he kind of surprised me. But like I said, I think I more so fought at his level than anything, if that makes any sense. Like I gave him a shot at beating me when I shouldn't have.
Mm.
And Johnny, why wasn't the fight 5 rounds? And do you feel like 5 rounds would have been to your advantage even more?
I think the fight wasn't 5 rounds because I think they were going to have 4 champ versus champ fights at the beginning.
Yeah. So and then time thing.
2 of them fell through, and then they could have technically made the last 2 5 rounds. That would have been very beneficial to me, I think, because as the fight was going on, I was wearing them out. I was doing more damage. I was building my confidence. And as fights go on, I get better. So I think if there was 5 rounds, I think I finish them, and when we rematch in the future, I hope that they can make it happen. I'm hoping it's a 5-round fight so I can really showcase, my skills, because as the fight goes on, I open up more, my cardio gets better, and I get better just in general.
And Johnny, last one for me. Do you have any idea of what is going to be next?
Yes. So I think this month, Fabian Edwards and Aaron Jeffrey are fighting for a number one contender. If they go out there, one of them wins unscathed and they're not completely injured, I think they're going to try to match me up with the winner of that fight later on this year.
Johnny Eblen with us here on the Anik Florian podcast. Impa Kasanganay is a good friend of the program, but I just want to make it clear you won that fight, and it was an absolute thrill to watch that fight from home, just the way you sort of go about your business. Now, my broadcast partner, the Renaissance man Joe Rogan, did recently say on the Joe Rogan Experience, And I quote, no disrespect to the other organizations. There's very good fighters in the other organizations, but I often feel like they're wasting their career because I see these elite fighters that are fighting in Bellator and PFL. And I'm like, hey guys, no one's watching. I mean, some people are watching. You're getting a little bit of a fan base. I don't want to disrespect, but there's a reality. Now, I'm a full-time UFC employee, Johnny. I bought the PFL Bellator pay-per-view largely because you were on it. And I know you're just getting started as far as like approaching your fighting prime. But certainly we want that fighting prime to play out in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And you're heretofore always going to be asked about the UFC. But when you hear someone like Joe Rogan say that, and you're one of those elite fighters that likely he wants as a bigger combat sports head than I am, he wants people watching Johnny Eblen. Like that's his overriding point. What do you feel when you hear somebody on his level say something like that?
I think he's right, man. And it's just kind of the cards that I have dealt right now. You know, there's contracts involved. There's only so much I can do. I'm trying to do the most I can to promote myself outside of, you know, the PFL. And I'm trying to draw as many eyeballs as possible. But like you said, it's tough to get the majority of eyeballs on me. But like true fight fans will tune in to watch me because they know how good I am. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of stuck with what I have right now, and I'm just trying to make the best of it. And I'm going to try to extend my prime as long as possible. I'm being very smart about how I live, how I do everything, how I train. And, you know, I'm going to extend my prime as long as possible to where at the end, you know, I'm going to have the most eyeballs on me and I'm going to be at the top of my game. And that's kind of the plan going forward because there's only so much I can do relative to the contracts I'm involved with right now.
You're doing everything right, man. You really are. But I did want to bring that your way. All right. I got a few more questions before I get to some rapid fire questions on the way out with Johnny Eblen. Training with Sean Strickland in Las Vegas. Seems like you guys are pretty tight.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he's a good training partner. He's an honest look when it comes to sparring, and he's a tough son of a bitch. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can.
Please.
I don't know.
You can cut away.
Yeah, but I'm also pretty damn tough too. So when we kind of get together, it's just like we level each other up. You know, we have a similar mindset when it comes to training. We like to go hard. And he's a good dude, man. And a lot of people might think otherwise. You know, he likes to state his opinion a lot, and you know that's on him. A lot of other people, you know, might hold back, but he's just himself 100% of the time, and I really respect that. So yeah, good guy, great training partner. I always enjoy going out to Vegas and getting some rounds with him.
That's cool. And I think it's just cool for MMA fans to see that alignment. All right. What was your most satisfying collegiate wrestling win? I mean, national qualifier, but what was your, I'm extending. See, I'm trying to give you stall time here, but maybe the most satisfying match for you. And I don't know, it could have been something early on in your career.
Oh man. Yeah, this is a tough one. Honestly, there was one match we wrestled Illinois. It was during the national duels, and I ended up pinning this guy in like I think the first 20 seconds or something crazy like that. It was a really big win on a big stage, and it was against a ranked opponent. And yeah, that was a really big win. I forgot the guy's name. He actually ended up beating me in the NCAAs that same year. I was on the backside. He ended up beating me out. But I guess that technically that was probably one of the biggest wins I had. You know, that's the only one I can think of. There's a few others, I think, but they're kind of less significant than that one.
I love asking high-level D1 college wrestlers that question. Dominic Cruz always tells me that to help my MMA play-by-play, I should watch as much college wrestling as possible. So I'm gonna go find out later today who exactly that opponent was. All right, rapid fire questions with Johnny Eblen on the way out. Favorite sports team other than American Top Team?
Chiefs.
Congratulations. I figured that might be the answer. All right, in sparring or in competition, who is the hardest hitter you've ever been in there with?
Oh man, that's a hard one.
You can pass on any of these.
Tyron Woodley hit me pretty hard. I remember that one.
That's fair. Yeah. Huge fucking mitts, that guy, T. Wood. Jesus, for a man his size, my God. All right, fact or fiction, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will fight each other in 2024.
Fiction.
True or false? Johnny Eblen and Bo Nickel will one day compete against each other in mixed martial arts.
That might be a fact, man. I don't know, but that might be a fact.
Feels like it.
Wow.
Tougher matchup right now for Johnny Eblen. Israel Adesanya or Dricus du Plessis?
I think Dricus. He's more well-rounded.
And then the best middleweight in the world right now, other than yourself, is whom?
Gotta give it to my boy Sean Strickland.
Yeah, there you go. All right, 15-0 world champ Johnny Eblen. You can follow him on Instagram at his name, Johnny Eblen. Johnny, congrats on everything, man. Appreciate your time. You're must-see TV as far as we're concerned. We'll be tracking your career, buddy, wherever you're fighting. Thank you, and hope to shake your hand at some point in the not-too-distant future, sir.
Yes, sir. Anytime you guys want to have me on, just hit me up, dude.
You're the man. Thank you, buddy.
No problem.
Thank you.
Johnny Eblen with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. A lot of elite fighters out there, Ken Flo. A lot of elite fighters. And I do think that as his career progresses, you may one day see him in some of these dream matchups against somebody like Bo Nickel. But man, that Impa Kasanganay fight, that was the reason I bought the pay-per-view. I mean, I did text you that Renan Fajeda, just a fucking monster. Like if that dude, Fajeda, I'm buying whatever that dude's doing. He's like 6'9", 350 fucking pounds, cutting down to 265. But Johnny Eblen's the man, and just a really thoughtful guy about his career. And I think big things are ahead.
He really is, man. He's a great fighter. I love his demeanor. And I think with everything he's accomplished, bigger and better things are on the horizon for sure.
All right, that is going to do it for today. Thank you to our guests, UFC #1 flyweight contender Brandon Royval. The recently heard from Johnny Eblen, Ray Longo. Don't worry, though. We're right back with you on Wednesday. We'll be joined by Maddie Betts, sports betting content creator and the CEO of Home of Fight. Also, Ken Flo and Brian Petrie will place their bets for UFC 299. They will preview with predictions the 8 biggest fights on the card. Don't forget, remember the show with Jason Anik and Bilal Muhammad on the Anik and Florian Podcast YouTube channel. JohnAnik.com for all of your AF merchandise, including our new One More Sleep designs. Promo code One More Sleep for 20% off your entire order. And KennyFlorianMartialArts.com, worth a click as well. Our producer is Cody Merrow. For Ken Flo, I'm John Anik. Thank you all for watching, for listening, for subscribing. We'll talk to you in about 48 hours on Wednesday night. Until then, yo fucking later.
He's a soul to the bread. He's cornbread. Cornbread. He's cornbread. Cornbread. Life is so precious. Do the best that you can. Keep your hands on the bar. He's the open man. He's cornbread. Cornbread. He's